just a quick intro to Tom Kabat. If he has a name that gets bandied about quite a bit because after almost, I guess, 30 years with the Palo Alto utility, Tom has been, he's kind of the right guy at the right time. He has been an expert talking about home electrification and all the different ways, and specifically how panels can be, your energy panel can be optimized. Your 100 amp panel can be used for a lot more than it normally is used for. So he's had developed the Watt Miser software, and actually even this session is called Efficient Electrification, the way we can all fit on the grid, because if everybody upgrades their panels, it creates kind of grid issues as well. So with that, I will turn it over. I'll step away. I'll turn it over to Tom. Just remember, if you have questions, hit the Q&A button and take it away, Tom. You can, grab screen now.
All right. Thanks so much, Dennis. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with everyone. And also, it's great to see Sean's presentation. Sean and I worked together on those guides. We've been working on those for a few years and really just trying to figure out, how do you put all this together in a way everyone can use it and see how it goes. So today's presentation, let me just move my picture around. Okay. Today's is about how to electrify without upsizing. What are the advantages? And slide credits are really to a couple of folks, including Sean and Josie. Josie Gaylord was one of my partners on a big project we did, kind of using the Watt diet and panel optimization for a 10-home study in San Mateo County. But anyway, what we want to talk about is electrification retrofits without having to upsize that electric panel. And the reason to do it is to save time and money. And you've already heard from Sean about the great reasons why to electrify. Better lifestyle, more safety, more control, more modernization, et cetera, and a preserved climate. And boy, we owe it to the next generations to not screw up this climate and to make the transition as quickly and efficiently as we can. And that's the reason for promoting this Watt diet. It's the way to make it quick and efficient. So I talk a lot about watts and amps, and not everyone memorized those things from high school physics or whatever, but a watt is the rate of delivering energy. So it's power. It's how powerful something is. And an amp is current flow, and current flow in a wire heats the wire. And so the electric code that kind of constrains what we do is focused on amps, but amps are proportional to watts. And so I'll talk a lot about watts and some about amps. But what do we really want? Do we want the watts and the amps? And the answer is no, thanks. What I really want are hot showers and cold beer, because I've touched live wires, and watts and amps hurt. So I don't want them. I want what they do. And so I focus on, how do we find the most efficient devices and the control strategies and the best order strategy to help get what I want without having to use a lot of watts and amps. And so we have several names for this stuff. Some people don't like the name I like, which is Watt diet, but panel optimization or a watt budget are other ways to think about it. It's really just about prioritizing things in order to meet your priorities. And so if one of your priorities is preserving the environment and helping everyone else electrify too while you do it, or saving money and not having an expensive retrofit, or saving time, if any of those are your priorities, you might really enjoy this Watt diet. The existing 100 amp panels on many homes, they deliver 24 kilowatts of power. That's a lot of power. It's like 34 horsepower. So staying on the panel can save $3,000 to $20,000 or $30,000 and save 6 months to a year. So those are some of the advantages: faster, easier, lower cost projects. More power left for other people. The advantages for cities are that basically they'll be able to reach their climate goals. If they don't do this, they probably will lag behind their climate goals. The advantages for the utility is they'll be able to use their workforce to help keep their customers happy. If they don't do this, they probably will bog down and be kind of overwhelmed with the amount of transformer work that has to be done and the transformer supply chain issues. And that won't make their customers happy. So Sean and Redwood Energy produced this nice diagram, which shows kind of the blue parts owned by the utility on your utility service line. That's this wire here. And then the red parts owned by you, and what you're responsible for is what we call the weatherhead and the riser and the meter box and the main panel, etc. So we have different allocations of who's responsible for what. And one graph we really like is taking a look at this maximum amps used by 22,000 homes in California. So big sample size, maximum amps used over a 12-month period. So what was the highest hourly load they had in amps? And so here it is expressed, it's 50 amps or 100 amps. Here's the population of homes that had each load level as their highest load. So you can see the highest occurring load was around 30 amps or less. And really there were very few homes having peak loads over 100 amps. And so, you know, it's normal to have a lot of space left on the panel. Here's a little study of a couple thousand homes. Let's see, what is this? I guess it's almost 100,000 homes in SMUD territory, but the blue homes are the regular gas hybrid homes, the way yours might be now, that uses gas and electricity. And the bottom axis is number of amps peak, 15-minute draw. So even a tighter peak, seeing where is that peak? And comparing the gas homes to the all-electric homes, the all-electric homes used about 5 more amps, you know, somewhere around 5 more amps to 20 more amps, something like that. And so really it's not that much in real peak usage. And so I use a lot of 100 amp panel examples. And this is a little table just kind of showing on the left, what if you had an unplanned electrification and you just kind of went about it, taking whatever was available, not really thinking about what the end goal is. And what if you planned it out because you wanted to save some panel amperage and power. So basically my little partial example here is a few quick choices get you up to 98 amps of consumption on that side. Or if you plan it and pick some more efficient devices, you might be adding, say, 40 amps. And next. So the basic steps in this Watt diet are really to assess what you have, which is take a look at the service wire size and panel capacity. Those are things stamped on your electric panel. And then think about your future needs for power, and then make a plan to stay on some kind of an amperage limit of the remaining ampacity of the panel rating you have. So, and then to do that, you choose the efficient appliances. You can choose controls that help appliances take turns if you want. And you can, but you don't have to, insulate your house or do weatherization. You can do that before you electrify or after, or you can leave it as is. The reason I'm treating this cavalierly down here is saying you really, we have to electrify everything to preserve the climate. We can get around to insulating. You've put it off this long. Don't put off electrification behind something we've already put off this long. So then the next step is to either install the circuits, like pre-wiring them, or decide to have them installed at the time of device installation, and then go out and have the appliances installed, or you can, get it done ahead of time, or you can wait for each one to burn out. Be careful with the water heater. As I've found in my household, that is the appliance that my wife demands that we have hot water within 48 hours. So you don't really want to get caught in a long string of design work with a water heater out. All the other electrifications like space heat, EV charger, dryer, even the cooking range were all things that could wait weeks because we have great alternatives like eating out or using the microwave. Anyway, insulate when you get to it. So one other thing about this strategy is right sizing the devices doesn't mean you have to put in small wires to still have all the benefits. It's okay to put in big stout wires that can future-proof it in case you change your mind or your household grows or something happens where you need more power at that device. Go ahead and put in a stout wire and put in the efficient device and size the breaker for the device, and it will be protecting the wire. So there's 8 ways we go about reducing these peak load watts. You can do this weather sealing, insulation, add ventilation, heat recovery, et cetera, all these thermal efficiency things. You don't have to, but you can. You should pick efficient equipment, high performance, inverter driven equipment, the kind Sean was talking about. And you can pick storage enabled equipment. And so an example is a bigger tank on the heat pump water heater, because that tank of water is a big thermal battery. You heat it up and then it's nice and hot and it'll let you glide across the high rate periods in the evening and then recharge itself afterwards while still delivering you hot water every time you draw on it, because the storage tank is bigger or it's got a thermal mixing valve to help you out. There's also now a battery electric cooking range that just plugs into a 120 volt outlet that's already behind your gas range to power the clock. It powers the whole range because it spends the midday charging up the battery with a whole bunch of energy, and then it's there for your cooking when you come home and ready to go. It also works in power outages. Anyway, eliminate the need for resistor strips in heat pump sizing. That's 1950s ideas, not needed anymore, but our local contractors need to catch up with the idea that that's old stuff, not needed with the new inverter driven heat pumps. So keep an eye on that. Avoid oversizing equipment. And again, like I said earlier, it's okay to oversize the wires. Nothing's wrong with that, but don't oversize the equipment. And there's a place where you have to work with your contractor to let them know you're comfortable keeping it down to right size. They don't need to install some big rocket to keep you happy, that you'll run it with a smart thermostat and it'll get a running start at keeping you comfortable. Pick multifunction equipment like a range, which is a combined cooktop and oven, or like Sean was pointing out, those combo washer dryer single machines. I put my dry, dirty clothes in. I get dry, clean clothes out with no labor in between. I love it. Sean loves his. There's a new one out on the market by GE that's even more efficient than his and mine, even bigger. So these things are pretty interesting. Heat pump heating is, takes the place of cooling. And so it also frees up the old furnace circuit. And then two-way EV charging is the thing that's coming on, which will let your car battery become your house battery and help power your house during outages and peak shaving. So pick equipment with their internal controls, like power sharing and boost features. We find that on like a combined range. And you can use external controls like circuit sharing devices that Sean showed a couple of pictures of, these plug-in devices or circuit pausers. And then this is my graph just comparing, how do these things stack up in these different end use categories? So this plot is the counted watts on the panel from 0 to 12,000 watts. And then these 5 groupings are end use groupings. Like this bottom one is car charging. This second one up is space conditioning, heating and cooling. This one is water heating in the middle. The cooking is right above that, and clothes drying is above that. So in each one of these 5 end-use spaces, we see a range of alternatives. Typically, the big bar that's really power consumptive is the classic thing that contractors are most frequently pushing on their customers. And in the Watt Diet philosophy, you just push back and you say, no, I don't want a low efficiency 3-ton heat pump with a resistor strip. I want a high efficiency one without a resistor strip. And I'd like this 120 volt water heater or this 15 amp water heater, et cetera. And you can see on the graph how much power you save. And then here for a 20 amp circuit charging a car, it's 108 miles a day. That's 39,000 miles a year if you're charging 8 hours a night. 39,000 miles a year. And so, you know, it's most common that people are pushing the wealthy folks, these 50 amp chargers that are kind of overloading the grid and going to end up in cases where on the neighborhood level, the neighborhood transformer gets saturated. Anyway, California without a watt diet kind of looks like it'll bog down fairly quickly. And then with a watt diet, we'll be able to stretch the workforce out and our money will go further and our rates will stay lower. There's a lot of good reasons to do it. And regulators are taking note of that. They're starting to look at how to encourage it. So that ball is getting rolling with Senator Josh Becker's SB 68 that became law. It has the Energy Commission looking at how to study and share this information. A few other things are happening now, including Department of Energy sponsoring improved products and processes competitions. And so, new products coming on the market. I'm very excited about that new GE, even bigger combined washer dryer unit with a heat pump on it, 120 volt plug-in that's come out. And very excited yesterday, A.O. Smith, the water heater company, announced they have new 4 sizes of models of 120 volt plug-in heat pump water heaters to compete with the Rheem 120 volt plug-in water heaters that are on the market now. Those are easy enough for people to do themselves. Anyway, service entrance panels, Sean had shown you a little bit about that. I just point this out to show the 2 different bus bars in a panel and how you get 240 volts by having breakers that connect across both and 120 volts when you just connect to one. This little graph is to help us energy nerds look at the watt diet, which is the vertical axis on how much watts, the peak watts these things consume in the 5 different end uses and versus how much energy they consume. The one that saves both energy and power is really paying attention to the space heat and cooling system, that heat pump, and getting the more efficient heat pump. So that's what's going on as you slide down this line. It's getting more and more efficient. It cuts the power some and it cuts the energy a bunch. And then the 2 different lines is switching from ducted ones where you have to power all the duct loss of the house to ductless systems down here, where you've got a little head unit in each room heating it up. And so you don't have duct leakage and duct thermal losses. The other big change here is that electric resistance water heater uses a bunch of energy. But these heat pump water heaters here, they are just shown in 3 different efficiency levels, moving across to the left, and 3 different power levels, the 30 amp, the 15 amp, and the 120 volt going up and down. So I'm tending to recommend people like this water heater, 120 volt, big tank, 65 gallons or 80 gallons of hot water. So it can meet a big hot water rush hour. And then Sean and I end up recommending often these 120 volt combined washer dryer machines versus a resistance dryer. So that's just a way to put energy and the other thing in perspective. We've already seen a graph like that. This is just comparing different tank sizes of heat pump water heaters. The bigger the tank you get, the more hot water. That's what this vertical axis is. And the higher you set the temperature on it when using a mixing valve, the more hot water you can get. So these are the strategies we're using in engineering these systems. But basically, we'll get to this slide now, silver bullets. So what have we found that's really working well? It's using 15 amp heat pump water heaters like Rheem and Stiebel Eltron put out, and the new 120 volt, they're less than 15 amp heat pump water heaters. Rheem has 2 models. A.O. Smith now has new models out, and they work in even colder garages. So you can get up into the Sierra foothills and still have a garage mounted water heater that can do it all. We're also finding 3-ton, 17 amp, high efficiency, inverter driven heat pumps are the way to go. They're extremely quiet, very energy efficient. They just use a 20 amp circuit and they're just loading it with 17 amps. And so that frees up a lot of power. Let's see. What else is good? Heat pump, dryers. I've already been over that. Circuit sharing devices. If you need controls, we can talk about that if there's any questions. And so people say, okay, that's good, Tom, you've covered amps. What about physical space in the panel? So here are 9 ways. You'll get the slides if you want them. There are 9 ways of accommodating more circuits at your house. And so one of them is just to recognize some of the electrification frees up a circuit like the old furnace circuit, which was its own circuit. So now it's available for electrification. And then, like I said earlier, use these multifunction devices like heat pumps because they heat and cool, so you don't need separate circuits, combined ranges, combo washer dryers. Yeah. Then we have these tandem breakers or slim breakers. Let's see, I've got here in my hand two of the slim breakers takes up the same space as one of the regular fat breakers. So that's a way to go to free up space. And then Square D brand breaker, they've got models that let you put 2 wires into the same breaker. So let's say you've got 2 lightly loaded light circuits. You don't need to have 2 different ones anymore. You can put them both under the same Square D clamp, and that freed up one of the circuits. The other way to do that same kind of thing is with a pigtail, a set of a wire that's in a Y shape that meets that same need. The third thing is item 6, add a junction box. The third way to do that same thing of meeting 2 lightly loaded lighting circuits with 1 breaker. Now that we've got all these efficient LEDs, we've really taken the loads off our lights. So you don't need as many circuits out in the house for that. You could add a sub panel. And that's, the bigger effort way to do it. And you can do what we call line tapping, the solar in feed. If you like solar, you can tap it in without bringing it across a breaker. If you can line tap it. And another way to line tap solar or other end uses that's coming up is with a meter collar device. So that, I think I've used up a bunch of my time. Dennis, is that the case, or do I have more?
Actually, you're right on schedule.
Okay. Well, then let's see if anyone has a question. And I haven't been able to read the chat. So
most of the chat actually involved that the Q&A option wasn't available for some reason. I had clicked it on and I just saw that it was off. So, but there really hasn't been, your presentation and explanations were so good that there weren't any questions. Oh
yeah. So I do see one. What happens if you're trying to stick at 100 amps with a watt diet, but by mistake go over 100 amp? Does that fry some circuit? So let's say, yeah, I understand the thing. You put all your devices on, and coincidentally, and it might happen some winter morning, you're charging your car, you're trying to crank your house heat up, you're recharging all your showering, your hot water use has just happened, you've turned on both ovens and all 5 burners, you're drying a load of laundry, you've turned on every light in the house. Okay, what happens is the main circuit disconnect just snaps off, everything stops in your house, and you scratch your head and go, oh, we must have overloaded that. Let's turn a couple of these things off and turn it back on. And so you turn off your car charger and you turn it back on. You turn on the main switch. So there is that safety device on the main panel that just shuts off. So it's really an inconvenient thing. That's what's happened.
I guess the best thing would be, now I mentioned that we did have a Redwood Energy booth in the expo area, which has some of his documents. And I think I put some things that were on about, the watt miser and stuff, but any other recommendations?
Yeah, I think in the presentation, I've got a few sources. There's a couple of different concierge sources out there now. A company called Quit Carbon, another one called Emerald Eco, and then also through Home Energy Analytics offered by PG&E. There are several ways to be getting assistance, learning more about this stuff. If you go into the Redwood Energy Research section, you can use the interactive spreadsheet and calculate your own watt diet. And, so things are coming along, and folks are developing apps also that will do the same thing and maybe even do it better, because they'll make forms that you can then show to the contractors. So it's a little cleaner than my spreadsheet versions.
So I also want to mention that you are doing something like this again on the 27th of July, I think at 6 o'clock with Actera.
Right. And that one will be focused mostly on heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So whereas this one was focused on staying on the panel, that one will be more general about HVAC, how to go about the electrification there.
Okay, well, just if people can't get enough of you, I just wanted to mention that they can go there.
Oh boy.
Well, thanks very much for coming. And yeah, it was great to kind of have you back to back with Sean, because you have a lot of there's a nice little level of overlap and
oh yeah, Sean and I have started doing our version of the Click and Clack Car Talk show too. There's we offer this thing about once a month called the Ask Sean Show, and we take case studies. So if people want to propose their case studies, we kind of tackle them on the air and show what's happening.
Well, thanks, Tom Kabat. Thanks very much again.
All right. Thanks, Dennis.